Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Family Tech Talk Night. Good evening, everyone. We have people joining the room, so let's just give it a minute as more of our attendees are logging into tonight's session. Welcome to Family Tech Talk Night. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Family Tech Talk Night. And if you're just joining us, there is a link in the chat. Please sign in and provide us your name, your school's name, and if you'd like, include your email address. And that way we know you were here tonight. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Once again, welcome to Family Tech Talk Night. And we'll get started in just 1 minute. Okay, let's get started. Welcome everybody to Family Tech Talk Night. My name is Lynette Owens. I'm the Vice President of Global Consumer Education and the founder of Trend Micro's Internet Safety for Kids and Families program, dialing in from Boston. And I'm joined by my colleague, Doug Binns. Doug, can you introduce yourself?
Hi there. I'm Doug Binns. I am a lab administrator for our Tipping Point support and education services teams. I'm also a volunteer for the Internet Safety for Kids and Families program, and I participate in these presentations as a cybersecurity professional.
Thank you, Doug. And if you're just joining us tonight, we encourage you to listen to a number of languages that we're providing for you this evening. Just select the globe icon at the bottom of your screen, on your screen, and choose the language that you would prefer to listen in on. It is, we have tonight's session available in Japanese, Mandarin, Spanish, Ukrainian, and of course English. And we thank our interpreters from all over to join us tonight as part of our session. So welcome everyone. And we'd like to know in the chat, please tell us, where are you dialing in from? Please tell us in the chat what school, what city, what state are you dialing in from? Say hello to everyone here tonight. Doug, where are you dialing in from, actually?
I'm actually in Georgetown, Texas, just about 20 minutes north of Austin, Texas.
Great, fantastic. And hello to Ohio, Westerville, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay, Ohio's representing tonight. Oh, we have Cedar Park, Texas, originally from South Africa.
Cedar Park
Beaverton, Oregon. Great
Cedar
town.
Park is right in my area as well.
Fantastic. Hello, everybody. So again, if you're just joining us, please, in the chat, there is a link, and I'll ask my colleagues to actually post that again. Sign in and let us know you were here tonight. And if you'd like to listen in on any number of languages, Japanese, Mandarin, Spanish, Ukrainian, please choose the globe icon and select the language you would prefer to listen to tonight. So in addition to that, again, I mentioned there's a sign-in link in the chat. If I could ask my colleagues in the background to please repost that link in the chat for everyone to sign in, I would appreciate that. And the session runs about 80 minutes inclusive of questions. So it really is up to you how long we go. We want to make sure we answer every question. And a recording of this session is going to be made available to the person at your school that organized tonight's event. We won't be posting it publicly. We are going to make it available to the person at your school, whether it was a PTO, PTA leader, or perhaps a school principal or teacher. We will make a recording of the session available to them, so please check with them after the conclusion of tonight's session. We also ask that you submit your questions in any language in the Q&A. Please don't use the chat for that, because we're going to be using chat for a lot of other purposes, and your question might get lost there. So please use the Q&A function to submit your questions in any language. And I know on the screen it says English or Espanol, but actually any language is fine. We will turn to our interpreters to help us address them. Finally, when you leave tonight's event, you should be presented with a survey on a web page in front of you, but we will also provide a link to that survey in the chat at the conclusion of the event. And if you do choose to complete it and choose also to include your email address, you will be entered to win any number of copies, 5 copies, one of 5 winners, sorry, of a copy of software that we'll talk about later on. Okay, so with that, we want to get to know you a little bit better through a couple of polls. So I'm going to ask my colleague, Doug, to actually read these through.
Absolutely. So the first question we always ask is, how old is your oldest child? We like to try and tailor our conversation a little bit to make sure that it's most beneficial for the groups of individuals that are attending our discussions. So the 4 categories we got here are A, 5 years old or younger, B, 6 to 10 years old, C, 11 to 14 years old, or D, 15 years or older. And you should have a poll that's available, a voting option in your Zoom app here that'll allow you to vote on this, and we should be able to receive the results here momentarily.
Yes. So, and as we let people answer this question, I think both Doug and I have a little bit older kids than what we're seeing here on the chat, on the poll. But we have lived through raising children at these ages and with technology. So
absolutely,
let's end the poll here. So it looks like well, it looks like a little bit older on average. I would say, yeah, that 6 to 14-year-old range is one of the most challenging times for sure.
It
So
can be.
yes,
The older half of that tends to be the period of time when the children stop listening to their parents and start listening more to their peers, which
absolutely.
can be very frustrating.
Yeah. Okay.
So our second poll is to kind of identify where you would like us to focus a little more attention. Now we have a set program here, but we can definitely dip into some of these areas a little deeper as necessary. So what are you most interested in discussing? A, managing screen time for my kids. B, helping my kids stick to age-appropriate content. C, dealing with online bullying or hate. D, getting ideas for positive uses of the internet. Or E, not sure, just here to learn something new. And even beyond this discussion, we have plenty of additional online resources that we can point you to get deeper understanding of any of these categories, even if we don't spend enough time on it tonight. So,
Fantastic. So it looks like we have a winner so far. One of them is rising above the top
see that.
of the others. So we're going to close this poll right now and share those results with you. And there you are. I don't think it's a great surprise, Doug. I think from our experience, this sticking to age appropriate content tends to always rise to the top, but we will be touching on a little bit of all of these topics today. So hopefully all of you will feel like you're getting something out of tonight's session. But this gives us a good sense of where to spend a little bit more time.
Absolutely.
Great. All right. So I think with that, we just want to set some expectations and talk to you a little bit about our approach to helping young people and frankly those of us who care for them and raise them and teach them about our approach to digital citizenship. So the first is that it's a complex topic, but it is a necessary one, one that is very important for our children's future. There are multiple areas that we're going to cover tonight. And one of the things that you should know is that we don't really subscribe to the philosophy of scaring you all the time. Our approach is actually to empower you by telling you the truth of what we know as experts in the cybersecurity industry, as experts that have been doing this particular work for the last 15 years, and share with you the best practices that we've learned along the way, and also what we've learned from other parents over that decade and a half. And let the decision ultimately be yours and your children's. It's not to lecture you, it's not to scare you, but it's to tell you the truth so you can make the best decisions with your eyes open. So first, let's define digital citizenship. It's a mouthful to say, but it does include teaching children about the risks online and how to avoid them. So safety and security is a really important part of it. But we don't stop there. We would not be complete if we only stopped at this conversation. It's also about digital literacy, the how. Even if I know that protecting my privacy is very important, I still need to know, where are those privacy settings? What are the exact techniques, features, tools that I have at my disposal to protect my privacy? So that's an example of the actual digital literacy to support knowledge and awareness. It includes a conversation about how we behave towards others, how we behave within the context of online communities, how we behave when there are rules and even laws governing the norms of the online spaces where we participate. And finally, mastery. Very often when we talk to children about technology use, it can feel like a long list of what not to do. We are very much proponents of balancing that with the things that children should do with technology. What are the ways that they could be using it that is good for them, for others, or for the world around them? So we like to organize tonight's content in 4 categories. And we're going to spend a little bit more time in a couple of these than others, especially based on the way you answered the polls tonight. And we're going to start off with some easier topics that you have a lot of control over. A lot of it is based on the baseline of technology that you could be using and the way that you're using it in your home. And then we'll build on top of that around discussions of risk and things to watch out for. And we'll then talk about how we behave towards others and ways that we can show mastery of technology. And so we more simply call it be online, be safe, be kind, and be savvy. And we think that when we're talking to children, it's an easier way to describe it. Being online means setting up the right environment. That's where we'll talk a lot more about tech tools that are available to you, setting rules and setting a good example. Being safe is about protecting your privacy, your personal information, and even yourself, your physical self. Being kind is about how you behave towards others, but kindness is also something we need to direct inwardly towards ourselves too. Finally, being savvy is all about encouraging good habits and teaching good uses. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Doug.
All right, so setting up the environment is always important for anything that you're doing when it comes to computers. We've entered a world, especially over the last few years, where we are spending more time in front of our screens, in front of our devices. The computers that we carry in our pockets and the laptops that we use for work from home or remote learning environments, they're paramount to almost everything that we do these days. So you need to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success and long-term health and security overall. So a couple of things about the physical environment where you're setting things up. You want it, generally you want it when you're talking about work or school at home, you want it in an environment where you can limit your distractions. You want to have proper posture, some form of a desk or table that provides you the appropriate distance from the screen, appropriate height of the keyboard, and the appropriate height of the screen in relation to your seat. There are various tools these days, such as desks that allow you to raise and lower the entire desk or the monitors. You can get monitor arms that allow you to adjust the height and angle of your screens. When it comes to lighting, you want to have adequate lighting for your space. You want to try to limit blue light as much as you can. In fact, we recommend blue light glasses if you're going to be sitting in front of a screen for extended periods of time. There are studies that demonstrate that excessive exposure to blue light that's produced by monitors and digital lighting actually does increase the brain activity and can actually lead to insomnia, sleeplessness, and sleep problems. The other aspect that we like to talk about is this 30-30-30 rule that you see here on the slide. And what that is approximately every 30 minutes, what you want to do is take about 30 seconds to actually stare at something about 30 feet away. It actually will help relax your eyes. It leads to less eye strain, fewer headaches, less overstimulus. One thing that I also recommend is on a regular basis, probably every 30 minutes or once an hour, go ahead and get up, walk around. Our bodies are built to and designed for movement. If you're sitting in one place too long, you're going to get stiff, you're going to get sore, you're going to create difficulties for yourself long term. So again, you want to get yourself and kids used to these types of behaviors early on, so that prolonged problems do not start to occur as a result of not setting up a physical environment early on. Moving on to the actual access of your network, your computers. We have so many devices in our houses these days that you want to make sure that you are protecting yourself from external threats getting into your network. Step number one is, of course, limiting access to your router or your other networking equipment. You want to make sure that you configure it properly. You set up passwords. In fact, make sure that you don't use any default passwords that come on the devices. You want to make sure that you are regularly updating these devices when you get them out of the box brand new. They've probably been sitting on a shelf for some time in a warehouse. They don't have the latest software on them, so you want to make sure that you update them. You want to configure your wireless equipment if you have the opportunity for multiple networks. You want to set it up with maybe a primary network for your personal office type equipment, where you're going to be doing a lot more personal and private data work. And then when the kids' friends come over, you want to have a separate guest network set up for them and their game consoles, the stuff that's going to be more threatening to your personal data. Most modern routers have the ability to have at least two separate networks on them, two separate Wi-Fi networks. Some off-the-shelf routers these days have the ability to provide 3 or 4 or 5 different wireless networks. So look at your manuals, look at the settings that are available for your particular equipment. If you find that parts of your house don't have reasonable connectivity or have poor connectivity to your Wi-Fi, you can always set up a Wi-Fi extender. Some modern houses are being built with hardwired Ethernet cables in them as well. But majority of people these days are using Wi-Fi. Again, use a Wi-Fi extender to extend the reach of your wireless router. Try to set it up in a central location in your house so that you're not providing wireless access out at the street. There are people that'll pull up at your curb in their car, pull out their laptop, and try to connect to your wireless access point. So you want to limit the range of that. Some of those settings on those devices allow you to do that as well. Just try to keep that Wi-Fi signal confined to your house, but make sure it reaches all parts of your house. Staggering the use of time, allowing for different individuals in your household different times to do different types of activities. Set a time for work from home. Set a time range for homework time. Maybe when mom and dad are in the kitchen preparing dinner, the kids can be using the kitchen table to do their schoolwork if they have online homework to do. And maybe after dinner, give them an hour to play their video games on their console. Try to adjust who's using the internet for what purposes, so that you're not overusing your bandwidth for example, somebody's trying to stream a movie and play video games while mom or dad are trying to do work. Sometimes you'll consume your bandwidth and start running into problems by overlapping activities. All devices these days have some sort of security capabilities. Okay, if they don't, you want to install security capabilities. You're gonna have it take way too long, way beyond the scope of this presentation to go over everything that's out there. What you need to do is educate yourself on what security software is available for your devices, what security settings are built into your devices, and then learn how to use and configure those settings. But make sure that every device that connects to your network including your children's friends' devices, have security software on them. I have a rule in my house. If your friend's device comes into my house, they don't get to go on my network. They don't have access to my network unless I verify they've got some sort of security device on it. It's just I don't want their compromised device connecting to my equipment and compromising my personal data. Every modern router has a firewall built in. Again, I recommend going through the manual, reading how to configure it, turning it on, adjust the settings to meet the needs of your household. And again, it's a lot about educating yourself about what you have available. If you feel that the firewall that's built into your device is insufficient for your needs, there are other additional devices you can purchase. There are software packages you can put on your endpoints, on your computers, your tablets, and your cell phones that also provide firewall capabilities. It's again about educating yourself on what's available for your particular device and how to configure it. And there's a world of resources out there on the internet on how to do all of those detailed steps. Using strong passwords. We'll talk about that in just a minute, about how to better define strong passwords. Multi-factor authentication. It's a tool that allows you to, when logging in to a site or a device, it requires you to have two forms of authentication. It's something about, say, something that you know plus something that you have. For example, you know the password to the site, and the site sends you a code on your cell phone. And without those two pieces of information, you're not going to be able to gain access to that site. So any sites that you use, any tools you use, go ahead and set up multi-factor authentication. It's going to be an extra step to log in, but it's definitely worth it, because it makes it a little harder for the bad guys to get into your stuff. Virtual private networks are very common in business worlds today. They allow you to connect to the office over a secure encrypted channel. You also see advertisements from various VPN providers, and they allow you to kind of anonymize yourself when you're connecting to the internet. One thing to note about VPNs is that it's a source to destination protection. Essentially, if you connect to the office from a VPN that you connect to on your laptop, from your laptop to that office, you have a secured tunnel that you're connecting through. If you use a VPN service, when you connect to that VPN service, you are connecting from your laptop to the VPN service, and that's an encrypted channel. But once you get past that VPN service to the open internet, you are still potentially vulnerable to compromises and threats that are out there. It's only securing the two endpoints from the start to the finish. So just keep that in mind when you're using VPN services. They are useful for various things, but educate yourself on what they're providing to you when you sign up for them. Updates. This is my life. It's part of my job. I'm updating all of my hardware and all of my software continuously and constantly. Just because a device is new, just because a software package is new, does not mean that bugs have not been found that create vulnerabilities. The bad guys are always finding them. The good guys are always finding them and patching them. Sometimes there are vulnerabilities that the manufacturers don't even know about until some security researcher discovers it and divulges that information to them. We have a whole team of people at Trend Micro that do just that. They find security vulnerabilities and report them to the manufacturers. So always make sure you're updating your software and your hardware to the latest code that's available. Make a regular habit of doing it every couple of weeks, every month. You don't have to do it daily, but if you have a tool that has the ability to set up automatic updates, absolutely set it up, make it as easy on yourself as possible. Here's where we would talk about passwords and phrases. You want to use complicated passwords. I recommend minimum of 8 characters. I actually use 12 or more personally in everything that I do. One easy thing that you can teach your kids, especially the younger kids, is come up with a good phrase that you can use the letters and numbers out of to develop a password that creates a mix of upper and lowercase characters, numbers, and symbols. This is a good example right here. Might need to buy more toilet paper soon. I think we came up with that example at the very peak of the pandemic when everybody was running out of toilet paper. But it gives you an idea of a good way of helping the younger crowd develop a mnemonic tool to create good solid passwords that are hard to guess. Another thing you can do is go out and get yourself a reputable password manager tool. A lot of password managers have the ability to generate passwords for you, and they help you keep the library of passwords for various websites and software applications that you have. I have sites and tools that I use on a regular basis that I don't even know the password tool to those sites and tools because I use a password manager and it sets up 12 or more character randomized passwords for me. I have to go back to my password manager to retrieve the password to log into those tools. So if I don't know it, it's going to be that much harder for the bad guy to figure it out. And of course, backup and store your data safely. Find good, reputable cloud services that you can rely upon. There's a lot of big names that are out there. You probably hear advertisements for them all the time. If you have a lot of people with a lot of laptops or computers in your house, in your household, you can also look into getting network attached storage devices that are internal to your household, where everybody can centralize the storage of their data. And then, of course, get a good backup device, such as a USB hard drive that you can back up your data to so you can store it offline. That way, if your computer does unfortunately become compromised and I don't know, ransomware locks up your computer and you have to have it completely reloaded, if you have the offline backup data, then that stuff is going to be protected while you get your computer reformatted and reloaded with software after some sort of a potential compromise that could occur. Let's see here.
I'm happy to take over here, Doug, if you'd like.
If you'd like, I could use a drink of water.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And so those, as we said before, those are some basic things that you can do, really important things that you can do from the very beginning that you have control over in your house to make sure that at a minimum, your kids who are using all kinds of games, devices, apps, who have friends over, borrowing your Wi-Fi network, of ways that you can at least protect your home, protect your kids, and protect your own information. But a lot of you said you were very interested in learning also about how to make sure, even after I block, the cyber criminals and I locked all that down, how do I make sure my kids actually look at things that are age appropriate for them? And so a lot of tools already exist in the devices and the apps you and your children use. And you don't really have to pay for anything in addition. So we're going to talk about a few of those now. And those capabilities can help you not only filter age and appropriate content, but also, manage in-app purchasing, monitor what they're actually doing, how much time they're actually online or on a specific app. And those things can exist inside, as Doug said, your router, the devices themselves, through your ISP or your cellular provider. In security software itself, Trend Micro makes some. You probably know Other companies like McAfee or Norton, they have those tools. Many others do. And then the app stores and sites and apps themselves. So let's start with one of the more popular devices out there, and those are Apple devices. So in the chat, can everyone say yes or no? Are you an Apple family? Do you or your children use iOS devices like iPads, iPhones? Yes, I think usually this is where the majority of people are, but we'll get to the Android. We're not going to forget you. So let me know in the chat also, do you use or know of this setting, screen time? And if you don't, screen time is actually just sitting right in the settings. And if you have an Apple account and so do your children, then you can actually connect that in a way that allows you to start doing some of the things that you're worried about, that you wanted to be able to do. All you need to do is select that family member here at the bottom. And then within screen time, you can start to see what are they actually doing with their phone or with their iPad. I as a mother have used this because I noticed my child was working very late on homework, and also noticed that usage of Instagram time was rising. So the best thing about tools, whether it's from Apple, Google, whoever, the best thing about tools is not just for you to police. What we encourage you to do is use that information to communicate. The most important tool that you ever have in your toolbox is an open door and communication. It's very important that you view these tools as, again, not just policing, but a way to actually have important conversations. I noticed you're not getting to bed early enough. Do you think maybe we should cut back on this Instagram time a little bit so you can get your homework done sooner? And I'm not going to go through all the settings, but how many I see that many of you are saying we're an Android family. How many of you out there? Go ahead and tell us in the chat. So Google also came up with their version of screen time. It's actually called Google Family Link. And just last month, Google Family Link has been around for about a year or two, maybe 3 years now. But just last month, they have created a web-based version. It used to be you had to download the app on your own device and then be able to control your child's device. But now you can do it from a web page rather than having to do that. And within Google Family Link, you can do many similar things that screen time can do, such as decide what kinds of apps they can download, and whether or not you want to share location. Your child's device could share location with others. You can even decide whether any app they're using uses the camera, shares the contact book to the app, and so on. So take a look at that and check it out. Both of these tools are really good, and I think most of you out there are probably either a Android or iOS homes. I do occasionally hear from the Windows phones people, but there aren't many out there. Maybe some of you are, and go ahead and put it in the chat if you are. YouTube
One other,
is, oh,
Lynette,
sorry,
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to interrupt. One more item on the Android stuff, because my household is an Android family. There is also on Android devices a digital well-being feature that allows you to, and I know Apple has their version of this as well. It allows you to do things like switch your screen from color to black and white at a certain time of day, to kind of remind you to start winding down and stop using your device. So look into those features as well.
Great point, Doug. Thank you. And for the interest of time, I'm now going to go through a lot of the apps that your children love. This one has been in the #1 spot for as long as I've been doing this work, which is 15 years. Anyone ever hear YouTube? Tell us in the chat. I'm joking. Of course you have. The problem with YouTube for a long time is that we could never know what was going to show up after our child watched a favorite video, right? You have no idea what's coming next. But last year, they finally launched something called the YouTube supervised account. All it takes is for you to have a Google account, and within YouTube, under that Google account, you can now decide whether your child on that browser can have the explore setting, explore more or most of YouTube. The explore setting is largely for children between 8 and 11 years old. I think YouTube does a pretty good job of basically saying, they're not going to show you any videos that aren't okay for that age range. If you choose explore more, that takes you up to 14 years old, about. And if you choose most of YouTube, that takes you up to 17 years old. It basically stops up until adult content, which is 18 plus. So if you're not familiar with the YouTube supervised account, and you did worry about your kids being on YouTube too much and what they might see, please consider using this setting. Any families out there letting their kids use TikTok? Anybody letting their kids use TikTok? Put it in the chat. I'm going to guess we're going to see more of one answer than the other. A hard
almost always
nope.
do.
Yeah, I love it. Hard nope. Right. I just want you to know that every time we ask this question, it's exactly the same responses that we're seeing here. Yep, it's pretty universal. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, a lot of times they don't necessarily have the apps installed, but there's enough TikTok content out there that it gets floated across YouTube as to the users as a consumable rather than a presenter, somebody who's creating the TikToks.
Yes. So since most of you said no, obviously at some point you're going to say yes, or they're just going to figure it out and they're going to be old enough. So just wanted you to know that TikTok already 3 years ago now, I think, launched a feature called family pairing. And this is a nice way to ease you and your children into the TikTok experience. What does it do? It basically allows you to do a lot of what we talked about: limit screen time, limit who your kids can connect with, and even limit the kind of videos that are going to show up on TikTok. Not perfect, but it's better than nothing. And what it requires you to do is download TikTok on your device and assign it as the parent, and then download TikTok on your kid's device, and you can start to do those kinds of controls. Okay? TikTok family pairing. And that's great, Megan. I think you're saying they're not allowed to use it on their own, but you're there to monitor while they're looking at it, right? So I think that's another way to ease your way in. Instagram is another one. I don't know that many of if you're saying no to TikTok, I don't assume many of you are saying yes to Instagram yet, but this is going to become a bigger part of their life. And the good news is Instagram decided earlier this year, to launch a much improved family center where you can see a lot more than you were able to before. You can't control what they're doing on it, but you can see, gosh, look who they're following. Look who's following them. You can still do things like limit screen time, but please, again, use these tools as a chance to have conversation. Same thing goes for Roblox. I think here's a quick video. Anybody's kids like Roblox? I'm gonna say there's a lot of yeses out there. Yeah.
For the age group we're looking at, probably.
It's a lot of Roblox out there, right? Addicted. Yeah. So Roblox has a great set of features. You just need to take a look at it. You got to set up a code, turn on that two-step verification if it's not already on. You can limit who they're chatting with within a game, within the entire app, and so on. Okay. So that's just showing you some screens. I'm not going to go over this too much, but if any of you have heard of Discord, same thing. It's really just very simply a big Uber chat room / social kind of space where you can do things like co-view with others. But Discord actually only more recently started improving its security settings. So if you're not familiar with Discord and your kids ever do ask you about it, do a little research. It's quite popular. It became more popular among young people during the pandemic. But make sure you're comfortable with the safety settings there. And if you're not, just say no and find another place for your kids to spend time. For those of you who have gamers in the house, Xbox has a fantastic app called Family Settings. You don't even have to go to the Xbox. You can just say yes or no when they're asking you, can I please play longer? Can I please play with this person online? And so on from the app. Finally, we at Trend Micro, because we're a security technology company, we've tried to put the power of our knowledge of 15 years plus our excellent R&D engineers to task, and we created an app called Trend Micro Family. We'd love for you to check it out. It is free to you. We do not charge for it. And it's our way of trying to help you do all of those things on all of those apps in one place. So please give it a try. We'd love your feedback on it. Doug, I'm going to hand this over to you. And I think
Okay.
you go with that.
So setting the rules, I think Lynette and I both mentioned that we are parents of older children. My youngest just turned 18, so we're in a weird spot now. He's an adult, but he's still in my house, so there's still some rules that need to be followed. But again, early on is the best way to approach this, I think. Go ahead and develop this established pattern of boundaries that for your kids and your family, and make certain that you're also setting it for yourself, because you need to lead through example. They're going to learn from you what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, what's allowed, what's too much, what's not too much. So you want to set these rules and these boundaries for the whole household, and also make them part of the rule setting. If they're old enough to help have that conversation, you can easily involve them in that conversation and help them create these boundaries, the time frames. Talk about what they're allowed to use, what they're allowed to view. Are we allowed to play certain types of games on the console versus not play these games on the console? Talk about when you're allowed to use the technology. I know that Lynette and I have both had these long-standing rules about not using technology at the dinner table when we're having dinner. Have that time for open discussions, family discussions. Some people will go to the step of taking all the cell phones and putting them in a charging box when you're having a meal. Set specific times for work from home or school from home activities, and then try to limit your technology use to those time frames. Specify how long you're allowed to use your console games and your gaming platforms. You can always tie that to you can tie that rule, that time frame, to getting chores done, getting tasks done around the house, getting homework done. If you do this many chores, you get to have this much time available to you. You can tie it to that kind of stuff. Especially for younger kids, I see a lot of parents in the world today, everywhere I go, they are absolutely readily handing 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds a tablet or a cell phone to just sit there and mess with, and they're not really paying attention to what they're doing. Define where they're allowed to use those devices and those apps, and what they're allowed to do on it. This is where some of those boundaries and rule setting techniques need to come in. And then when they're in your house, it's easy to control. When their friends come over, you can monitor and define what they're allowed to do. but you also need to set the expectations about what they're allowed to do at friends' houses as well. It's harder to control that, but if you have good dialogue with the other parents, you can also educate the other parents everything you're learning tonight and have the conversations with other parents, and the other parents can kind of jump on board with the rule setting as well and help monitor and guide that in their environments as well. The older they get, the more difficult all of this becomes. But if you set the good foundation early enough on, they're going to have an understanding of the reason behind these boundaries, and they'll have a good understanding of how to maintain themselves going forward. This is an exercise that you can do with your household, your kids, your spouses, your family members. And I think when we used to do this in person a lot more, we actually had a sheet of paper with a pie chart. And we would ask people to fill in on the pie chart how much time you spend in different types of activities. And then those activities are activities that support health, like sleep, meals, eating, exercising. What you do when it comes to learning, school, homework, reading, hobbies, mentally stimulating type of activities. Relationships, spending time with family, having conversations, being supportive of one another, teaching each other new tasks and skills. I would also put in here, one thing I think we're missing is work for adults. Spending time at work and doing work. I know that in this hybrid world we live in, sometimes it's hard to pull away from work. So you need to kind of focus on how much time you're devoting to that task as well. And then once you have that pie chart kind of filled in your head, or even if you want to draw it out on a piece of paper, kind of look at how much time is left over after all of these activities. And then define how much of that leftover time should be spent in each of these categories, or the leftover time on online and offline recreation type activities. There's plenty of stuff you can do offline that's recreational, that doesn't involve console games or doing schoolwork or homework or business work online. You can learn how to also use time with family online. Sometimes you might have a family game night, or I know some of the new streaming services have these services now where you can have a viewing party, and you can enjoy each other's company from afar in if you're unable to be there in person. So
I would
learn
just,
how to.
sorry, Doug.
No.
I just wanted to add here that, the other thing about this exercise is that I think sometimes we as parents, we just need quiet. We just need to get something done, and we hand the child a device to just give us that peace in the house. And we want you to know that if your children are doing all of these other things in green, blue, and pink, if they're actually spending a good deal of time on those, it's okay. Screen time is okay, right? Provided that you use the rules and the tools that we've already talked about, so it does not become what's called problematic media use, right? But think about screen time in this way, so you don't need to always feel that guilt. You're a good parent. You're here tonight, so I think that speaks volumes about you.
So I fully agree. And one other thing that I've told parents to do with this exercise as well, and I think Lynette will support me on this, is I mentioned earlier about how you can lead by example. You can demonstrate these skills and tools to your children and teach them through example. Well, kind of flip this around on yourself as well. Ask your child to fill out a pie chart that defines how they perceive your time spent in each of these categories. It'll really kind of open up your eyes as to what they perceive you're doing with your time. And sometimes it makes you take a step back and reevaluate how you're using your technology and your time as well. So sometimes that can be a good exercise to have that conversation as well.
Yes, and I don't know if anyone had this on their bingo card, but I want to say one thing you can do with that time left over is play pickleball. Sorry, I just had to put it in there.
Setting the example. I think I've touched on this a couple of times. What rules do you have for yourself, and what kind of example do you set? Again, this is where having a conversation with the youth of your house and the adults in your house, to try and look at all of these discussions and these topics that we've already gone over, and identify where your shortcomings and where your successes are. And always continuously evaluate yourself, because we all have room for self-improvement, I believe. And if you are evaluating yourself, that is another way that you're setting the example to your youth. Is letting them know that it's okay to recognize that maybe you're spending too much time doing one activity over another, and you need to make adjustments in your life. Change is part of life, and teaching the kids that change is part of life is always valuable, I think. So moving into the category of being safe, I could literally talk for hours on this, because it's what I do. It's my profession. But know that every device, every software package, every game, every console has some sort of tool built in to help you protect what information that you are giving out. There's going to be a settings menu somewhere that limits the profile data that you're exposing. There's going to be a tool that limits what is shared and to whom it's shared. And you're going to have to explore each of these tools. We use Fortnite as an example. When we do this presentation in the schools, the kids get very energetic when they see some of these slides, because it's stuff that they recognize, but they may not understand where the privacy settings are, or that they even exist. It's your job as a parent to help educate them. And once that you start down this path, you can again make that itself a game of, when you get a new app or a new piece of software, a new console device, encourage the kid to go find these privacy settings and learn how to find them and learn how to configure them, and sit there and watch over the shoulder as they discover it, before they get into the game, before they really deeply get involved in what's going on their screen. And that will help educate them to naturally start looking for these types of settings in anything new that they install or purchase. It'll help them again in the long run. And the side effect of this is also that you learn where those settings are as well. So you can always go back and double check to make sure that they're set appropriately. And if it's not very clear as to what it's protecting or what it's limiting, you as the parent can go back and do additional research to make sure that it's appropriate for your household needs. I guess the question that I always ask here is, how many people have installed a free app on any device that they've ever owned? Normally in a classroom, you get lots of hands going up. If you wanted to respond in chat, I'm sure I would see everybody saying yes, that you've done it. You scroll through the terms and conditions, and there's an accept button there. And one thing that we always like to point out is these apps are free, but they're not really free, because, as you've probably heard, they collect data. They collect data about what you use, how you use the app, what you view, what you search for, how you communicate with others. So when you click that accept button, what you're really doing is you're giving the app provider, the company that owns the app, permission to take that data about you and from you, and they're able to collect it and use it whenever they want, however they want, and forever. Okay. It's built into all the legal conversation in the terms and conditions that you accept. And what you need to understand is, even though you are providing that information and accepting those terms with that company, that data has a reasonable expectation of being held by that company privately. But there are cyber criminals that breach companies all the time and exfiltrate data. And there are insider threats, employees that may have access to that data. So you want to have conversations about what you're sharing. Images are a really big thing that I point out to people. You want to look at what you've got in the background of images that you take, that you share across these platforms and tools, and store on these platforms and tools. You want to pay attention to what information you may be inadvertently sharing through images. You want to be careful about what information you're sharing in your text messages and how it reflects back on you. Know that anything that you send out through these apps and these devices or these tools, once it's been submitted, it's on somebody else's equipment. It's on somebody else's server, whether it's the company or a friend or somebody that's following you. Once they receive it, it's out of your control. So assume that none of this is private once you send it out there. Once you submit it through that app, you've lost control of that data. You've lost control of that image. You've lost control of that message. So always make certain that you're considering what you're putting out there, and educate the kids in your household of the same. They have to assume that whatever they submit through these apps and these devices is out there as public information. Don't assume that it's private ever. This always gets murmurs with the kids too. They see that little cyber criminal in the hoodie. These guys are out to get your information. In most cases, it's for monetary gain of their own. They go out and they put out traps on the internet, essentially. They put out false websites. They send emails with enticing advertisements that trick people into clicking on content to go look at information. They put in ads on web pages that you're browsing that can lead to threatening content, that can lead to inappropriate downloads, various types of malware that can be downloaded just by clicking on a link because you're following a news story. There are cyber criminals that will go into chat rooms on console games and encourage people to go into private chats or divulge personal information, or try to trick them into giving up their username and password and take over their accounts. And that can lead to all sorts of emotional turbulence, especially among teens who have spent hours and months of their life leveling up their characters and their game content, only to have it stolen by somebody. So you want to watch for these things. You want to educate the youth about these types of behaviors. And even in my household, I'm a cybersecurity professional. I have these discussions with my family members all the time. A few weeks ago, my 18-year-old got an unsolicited text message that indicated that the U.S. Postal Service had an exception delivering a package. Well, he happened to be waiting for a package, and this is going to happen more going into the holiday season, so be aware of this too. He clicked on the link. It kind of looked like a legit website. He filled in his name and information, name and address, went to the next site, the next page. It asked him for $1 processing fee to get the package redelivered. He put in his credit card information. I have his canceled debit card right here on my desk, as a matter of fact, because he did it so quickly without thinking. And he immediately after he did it, he said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that." He came to me We called the bank, we got it squared away, but it does happen even to people that are knowledgeable of such things. So you got to watch out for what kind of information you share. And if it seems questionable, if it seems too good to be true, um, if it's an unsolicited email or text from a company that you may do business with, a lot of times it's better to not click the link. It's better to just type in the URL in your browser and go to that site and verify that some problem is occurring, or that your password needs to be reset from that way. Don't follow the links in the emails if there's any question at all about the validity of what you're about to click on and about to follow.
And I highly recommend, as we said earlier, use security software, even on phones.
Absolutely.
Because even if you think that your device is very strong at protecting you, it has nothing to do with links that you go follow. If you enter that information into a fake website, there's nothing that your device can really help you with. That's now in your hands. And thankfully, Doug, your son trusted his instinct enough right at the moment that he did it, that it was probably not legitimate, and you're able to take care of it. So, you know, three things: the door was open, he could come to you without judgment. The second is that he trusted that instinct because you've talked to him enough over the course of the years about what criminals might do. You know, and I think the third is that making sure that you're using security software on every internet connected device. Our kids accidentally tap on stuff all the time, and you know, it's getting worse right now, especially through text.
There are tools available for cell phones that can monitor links that come through text messages. I know that the security software that Trend provides for cell phones has that ability. He has that software on his phone, and somehow it didn't pick it up even. So, I mean, sometimes stuff still can get through. But know that having that security software is definitely an improvement over not having anything at all.
So I think, in the interest of time, I mean, we appreciate the questions that you've been submitting in the Q&A. We've been trying to address those. And so please know that if you did submit one, I believe we've answered them so far. But continue to put things in the Q&A. We're going to speed up the next sections here in the interest of time. And so, Doug, I think I'm just going to go ahead and launch this last poll, and we'll try and get through this next few sections as quickly as we can.
All right. So I'm just going to read this real quick for the sake for the benefit of the interpreters. Do any of your kids have their own cell phone? A, yes; B, no; or C, thinking about it.
Great. Yeah, I think with the age group represented here tonight, it's probably no surprise of how the answers are falling out. I'm going to go ahead and, in the interest of time, end the poll here and share the results. So it looks like a majority of you have said no, and the second largest group have said yes, and that makes a lot of sense. I believe in the latest study that I read, the average age of phone getting in their own phone is around 10 now in the US. And I think the pandemic probably precipitated that a little bit. So a couple of things that we want to talk about, in addition to what Doug already said, which is be careful of things like those suspicious texts. We just want to spend a quick minute here on the use of the camera. The camera on that phone, many of you have said no to TikTok, but at some point they might use it. People like taking pictures, you do too. Taking selfies, taking videos of people we love, places we've been, and that's great. We should use the camera in that way. But a few things that we've learned along the way, we want you to be aware of as parents. For those of you who've said yes already to the phone, and those of you who at some point will be handing a phone to your child. And that is this: there has been a rise among young people of self-produced images and videos that they would not want the whole world to see. And these kinds of images and videos are very often taken out of peer pressure. It's not even because some stranger on the internet is saying, send me a pic, right? This very often happens among peer groups. And the pressure that young people feel is, I want them to know I like them, so I better send them one of those pictures. Please remind your children to never feel pressure to do that, because as soon as they take it, even if they never send it anywhere, it's already putting them at risk. If you back everything up on their phone to the cloud on a regular basis, that image now will go there. And now it's in two places, in the cloud and in their phone. And who knows what could happen from there. We know many celebrities' stories about exactly this. So that's number one. Number two, a parent asked us long ago, what if my child receives one of those, even if they never asked for it? That's a great question. We want you to understand. Hopefully you'll never have to deal with this. And the reason that parents worry is because the phone is actually paid for by you. That phone bill is in your name. And now there's an image of an underage person being floated across, onto a device that has your name attached to it. So if that ever happens to your child, tell them to immediately come to you about it and delete it. There's no reason to be forwarding it on to any place else. As long as they've taken that kind of action, that's a very good thing. Your action then is to either contact the parent of the child who sent it, if you know who they are and you feel comfortable enough. Otherwise, report it to the school if you think it's not a comfortable conversation because you have no idea where else it's going. We work with police or officers. We've spoken to school resource officers. They're trying to investigate lots of different things, and they do see a rise in this. But the last thing they want to do is, make 2 8th graders feel like they're going to jail or anything. It's not going to happen with young people. It's different if the image was being sent to somebody much older. But the act of taking, sending, or possessing those images of underage people is technically a felony. They just won't punish young people who are passing it back and forth from each other. It's important that you do something, though, because if there's an investigation, they're going to know that it went to your phone, a phone bill that's under your name. So at least you've covered yourself by at least reporting it somewhere. You never know. On the games, anybody have a kid who really struggles to move away from the game when you said 10 more minutes? Anybody have a kid like that? So I think a lot of us do. And one thing we want to say about all the time, right, Mark? Yes. So we encourage you to, again, use some of the apps and settings we talked about earlier, but also consider doing a little bit of research on games that have time limits. So games like Rocket League, or even, FIFA or Madden football, or some of the sports related games. These games have time limits. The time ticks down and then it's over. I love Minecraft. I think there's wonderful things about it, but it can go on and on and on. And so if you really struggle with a child having this issue, please consider that in addition to the rules and the tools that we talked about earlier. So moving on to being kind. I think, again, in the interest of time, one of the things we want to point out here is that our children are taught to treat each other with respect and kindness, treat each other as you'd want to be treated from the moment they're born, right? We tell them that as parents, and then it's reinforced when they start school. But it's not just about being a nice person, right? Kindness is also in many forms, such as respecting other people's feelings about privacy. There's a lot of drama that happens between young people, especially in that 10, 11, 12 years old age, when the first phones start ending up their hands, they start having the ability to post on social media, and somebody posts a photo of a group, and one person looks great, the person who took it, selfie and everyone else doesn't like how they look. And they didn't want it to be posted. And that has created a lot of drama in middle schools. So one thing we could tell our kids is, not everybody has the same feelings about privacy. So if you're going to post something with other people in it, just ask them, you okay with this one? Are you okay if I post this? We could probably do this as adults much better. Have you ever had a picture posted of you up on Facebook that you didn't want posted? And so the other thing about respect is how, respecting other families' rules. Not every kid's going to get a phone at the same age. Not every kid gets to play the violent video game at the same age. And so if you are a family that's choosing to wait, good for you. And that's your choice. And if your family has already said yes to the phone, and because you feel they need it, they're walking home from school by themselves for the first time, that's great. That's your choice too, as a family. Let's tell our kids that every family has different rules around technology, and don't make fun of others for it. Respect it. Okay? It's important that we encourage that. Finally, unkindness. Social media in particular can create a lot of angst among young people because they start to get very caught up in the number of likes and followers and so on, comments that they're getting on their posts. So it's our job as parents to remind kids that your value is not equal to those things, that your value is greater than all of that. That's our job as parents, okay? And so I think that that's just really quickly a few things that we want to say about kindness, because we as parents need to be there. They might never actually be a victim of bullying or bully other people, but we know from the research that a majority of children will witness it, will be bystanders to unkindness online. And that still impacts our children too, even if they're not the one who's being bullied. So, encourage your children to come to you if they ever see anything that bothers them online. And you as parents, be prepared. Ask yourself 2 questions and write these down, and hopefully you never need the answers. The first is, what would you do if your child was the victim of unkindness online? And the second is, what would you do if your child was the one being unkind to another online? Be prepared. Think through those questions. Hopefully you will never need them. And when you do yourself see good things happening on the internet, please share those stories with your kids so they know that it's not all doom and despair out there. We're going to close it with being savvy. And Doug, I don't know if you want to talk through this or if you'd like me to.
I can do that. One thing that digital technology has provided to us is the ability to create all sorts of fictional content, and it gives us also the ability to replicate other people's content and pass it off as our own. So one thing that you want to try and do with your kids is to teach them some critical thinking skills, to kind of analyze what they're looking at, and really try and grasp whether or not what they're seeing online, what they're absorbing, is really real. Teach them to ask these types of questions, like, why was this made? Who made it? What's missing from this piece of information, this image, this document? A lot of times you see scam emails and text messages that have characters that are misplaced, misspelled words, things like that. How might these posts be interpreted by different individuals? Am what I'm posting here, is it going to be interpreted a different way than I'm meaning for it to be interpreted? How do I know that what I'm seeing is true? Is this the only source of that information, or are there other reliable sources of that information that actually help confirm that it's true or not? Who is benefiting from this message that I'm seeing, this post, this content? Is the content that I'm seeing, is it biased in some way? And if it is biased in some way, what's the opposing bias? Get them to start thinking about these things to make them a more well-rounded individual. Those are definitely questions that you want to ask. You want to have them grow as consumers of digital information in a way that is healthy. And that's why you want to start educating them about how to ask these questions on their own about content. And you can coach them through this at a younger age, and as they grow, they'll naturally develop this skill set. Encouraging good habits is also about making sure that things that you post reflect appropriately on you. Everything that you put online is developing a digital footprint, a digital picture of who you are. And you want to encourage them to build themselves up appropriately and make sure that what they're putting out there is a good reflection on them. Highlight their hobbies, highlight their activities that they enjoy doing. Build a good digital profile that people will be encouraged to see. There's a lot of content that can be created instantly and uploaded instantly. You want them to question their own posting of content to make sure that what they're putting out there is healthy and reflective of what they want people to see in them. You as parents, this little video that is showing right now is a reminder that you as parents can set up alerts. Google Alerts allows you to set search terms about you, your family members, things that that you want to know more about. And when changes occur on the internet related to these search terms, specifically your names, for example, you will get an alert in your email letting you know that something has been posted related to that search term. So if you want to go to Google Alerts and put in your name, you can have it every time something new is posted about you on the internet. Google's vast database of information will trigger on that and send you an email alert letting you know about that. This is a good tool to kind of keep tabs on things that get posted about you and your family members. It's also a good tool about topics that you're interested in. If some major event or topic update happens for something that you're interested in. Lynette, I know that you like talking about this, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and one thing to know about Google searches, it's a good idea to look yourself up online every once in a while, because maybe you'll find your digital twin, and the person who shares your name but isn't you. You kind of want to know if that person is doing things that are not really they're sort of unsavory. And that way, if anyone ever looks you up, you can explain that's not actually me. That's just somebody who shares my name. In addition to seeing if anything public has been posted about you didn't know about. And the reason that we talk about that is because of this number right here. We've been following the Kaplan Institute for about 8 or 9 years now. The Kaplan Institute actually puts out a lot of the preparatory materials for kids when they're thinking about the SAT, PSAT. And they started asking college admissions officers early on, beyond the application, would you look up this student online just to see what you found? And in the beginning, it was 25%. Its most recent number is 66% have said, yes, I would. And of those people who did look, 57% found something they did not find convincing that that student should be admitted to the school. But 38% found something that did convince them. This is the person we want. And that is why it's as important to talk to children about all of the things they should not do, all of the ways to protect yourself. And frankly, if you've done everything that we've talked about, you'd kind of be invisible if you search for yourself online, because anything behind privacy settings will never be publicly indexable, will never show up on a Google search. But do you really want to be invisible? Or is there something you want to be able to demonstrate to anybody, a future job, employer, a future college or other place you want to go, how you've mastered the internet. And that is why we talk about encouraging good uses, such as learning new skills, or maybe your kids want to use the internet or social media to promote a cause or raise funds for something they care about. Doug talked about showcasing accomplishments. There's very many ways to do this through blogs, YouTube channels, Huddle for the aspiring athletes, and so on. And a great one is entering contests, because if they have a good skill, it gives them a chance to enter something, follow the rules, maybe even win a prize, but they can start to build a portfolio of entries. Let's say they're an artist or a musician or whatever it is, writer. And so with that, we just want to wrap this up by saying that is a lot of information we just threw at you in the amount of time we had. And there is even more that we could have talked about than we did today. But our goal tonight was to actually give you a rubric, a framework by which to think about digital citizenship and all the ways that we as parents can help our children develop, practice, and master the skills of good digital citizenship. So we want you to know we also developed a cyber academy for kids. This is ideal for up to age 11. And each of these modules that you see, with more coming on the way, is a short little video with a Kahoot quiz, an activity sheet, a conversation guide that you as parents can use with your children. They can do all of this online. For those of you listening in other languages, we have this available in multiple languages. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see all the languages available today. We are adding Japanese, we are adding Ukrainian, and we are adding many other languages over the next few months. So please come back and check trendmicro.com/internet-safety, and you will find our Cyber Academy there.
Additionally, I want to point out that if you are a member of PTA, Parent Teacher Association, encourage the teachers to go look at this as well, because it can also satisfy some of the in-classroom requirements that a lot of municipalities and states are putting on the teachers and counselors these days.
Absolutely, we encourage you. And in some cases, if we're in those cities, we're happy to come in and present them to your kids if you'd like.
Absolutely. You hear that, Cedar Park? I'm available.
Cedar Park, Doug's there. So resources for you as parents are also at that same website. And our co-hosts of tonight's event, PTO Today, has a number of resources also available on their site. So stay active, stay involved, stay up to date, check out our site, tell people what you learned tonight, communicate constantly with each other, with your schools about how they use technology, with your children. And we ask you to challenge yourselves by doing one new thing you had not done before you met us this evening. Turn on two-step verification in Roblox. Try the 24-hour pie chart on yourself and your children. Gosh, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of things. Change the password on your router, please, if you haven't done it since you bought it.
If you want to have fun with the kids, change the password on your router and don't tell them. Make them come to you. Make them come to you and ask questions about the content that we've discussed tonight, and then turn it back on. Give them that password again. So.
Absolutely. And when you close out of tonight's session, you should see a link for this, but I'm going to ask my colleagues to actually post in the chat the link to the feedback form. It's very brief. Just as a reminder, your presenters tonight were Doug Binns and Lynette Owens from Texas and from Massachusetts. And if you choose to submit your email address either in the sign-in sheet or the feedback form, you'll be automatically entered to win one of 5 copies of one of our signature products that protects up to 5 devices in your home for a year. So again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us from wherever you were dialing in from. To my co-host, Doug, always a pleasure to do this with you. And to our team of interpreters, fabulous group behind the scenes of Trend Micro employees. Thank you very much, everybody, for sticking with us. A copy of the recording will be made available to the person who organized this event at your school. And with that, good night.